All right. Okay. So, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. So, welcome back to the class. I cannot say welcome back to UMP because you are not physically in UMP. It has been like challenging because of the recent spike in the number of cases of COVID-19. Even some of the students who are in the campus, okay, they we decided not to have the face-to-face classes at this moment because of the current issue, okay, current situation. So basically, we are in week 8 now, okay, week 8 out of 14 weeks for this semester, okay, week 8 out of 14 weeks for this semester, all right, and then we are halfway through the semester, okay, and your marks will be released by today, okay, for assessment 1A and 1B, so you can check your marks later on, a bit later today, all right, and then for this particular week, okay, and also next week, but actually what I meant is actually for today, okay, we are going to look at three important things. Okay, we're going to look at three important things. Number one, we're going to have a look at the weekly planner. Okay, so what we are going to have for week 8 and also for week 9, because for week 9, in the second meeting, we are going to have our second assessment, okay, assessment 2A and assessment 2B. Okay, and then after that, we are going to have a look at the format for standard operating procedure, okay, the actual format, each of the component that you have for the format, okay, the SOP, and then what do you need to fill in for each of the component. Okay, for your information for the assessment, especially on assessment 2A, the template will be given to you. You just need to get or transfer the information from the original text, okay, to the template accordingly. Okay, that is going to be for assessment 2A, and we are going to discuss a bit more detail about the assessment 2A later on after this. Okay, all right, and then after that, I'm going to show to you some examples. Okay, some examples of SOP. So there are three types of SOP that we have. Okay, number one is graphic operating procedure. Okay, next we have flowchart operating procedure, and the third one is hierarchical operating procedure. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen with all of you. The things that I'm going to share with you now, it is not in Kalam. Okay, it is not in Kalam. So I will be sharing the slides and everything in our Google Classroom so that you can look at it later on. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So now we are in week 8. Okay, we are in week 8. Let me allow your friends to join in. Okay, in week 8, we are going to have a look for today. Okay, we are going to look at two types of SOP because the first one of it that we have discussed and look at it earlier in week 7, the week before you leave for your or you left for your mid-semester break. Okay, and remember when it comes to SOP or standard operating procedure, you need to use imperatives. Okay, imperatives because it is going to be an instruction. Okay, you are giving instruction to the people. Okay, so to follow the SOP, you are giving the instruction so that the people will perform the task based on the SOP given. Okay, so for the two types, though, for the other two types of SOP that we are going to look today, okay, it is going to be the flowchart SOP and hierarchical SOP. Okay, for flowchart SOP, you are going to get involved with decision making. Okay, you're going to decide, right, whether to go forward, okay, or you are required to return back to the previous process, okay, or procedure in order to check on something. So we're going to have a look at the detailed version about it. Okay, so for the flow chart, okay, for the flow chart, right, so it is going to be yes or no, okay, yes or no, right. So if your decision is yes, right? So most probably you are going to go to the next step. Okay, the same goes to no, all right? So if your decision is no, maybe you are going to the next step, or somehow if your answer is no, you need to go back to the previous procedure or step. Okay, that is about flowchart. Okay, for hierarchical, it is more like on the sequence. Okay, sequence, for example, all right, so you are going to look at step number 1. Okay, you're going to look at step 2, you're going to look at step 3, and the rest. Okay, so this is about hierarchical, and this one is for the flowchart. Okay, so we're going to look at the detailed version about it later on. Okay, next, in the second meeting, we are going to have the writing practice for SOP. Okay, we're going to have the writing practice for SOP, but I am planning to do it asynchronously, whereby, if you still remember, I asked you to do some exercises regarding SOP. Two types of it, all right? History of underwater tunnel and also lactating cow milk, all right? And then I will give you another exercise on graphic operating procedure today. So these three exercises, you need to do it on your own. But okay, for the second meeting, I will give you the briefing about the answers. Okay, what is the answer, or what are the answers for each of the activity? Then you can compare with the answers that you have prepared earlier. Okay, so I'm going to explain why it's supposed to be like this and such. Right. And then at the same time, in the second meeting, I will give you the briefing for self-access activity 2, FSAT. Okay, we are going to use this platform. So don't go to this platform yet because the questions are not ready there. Okay, so once I have given the briefing, okay, in the second meeting, in the video, all right, so you can watch the briefing part, then you can proceed doing it. So it is going to be similar like our first self-access activity. You are given 1 week to complete the whole task, okay? And please make sure, right, you can redo as many times as you want during that, within that 1 week. But please make sure once you are satisfied with the marks, once you have answered all of the question, and then you think that you are not going to do it again, okay, so please download the certificate or the digital certificate given after you have answered all of the questions. So there are two parts, okay, part A and part B. So you have to download the certificate, the digital, and you are required to upload it later in our Google Classroom. Okay, so I'm going to create the tab, right, for the activity, for the assessment in Google Classroom. Then you are required to upload it there. Okay, all right. So in week 9, we are going to continue. So week 9 is going to be the last week for process and procedure. Okay, the topic. So we're going to look at the listening strategies. Okay, before you listen, while you listen, and after you listen. Because why? Your assessment 2, okay, will consist of listening test. Okay, right. And then at the same time, in the first meeting, we are going to do some listening practice, especially on standard operating procedure. Okay, so I will give you some input next week. How many sections are there? How many parts are there for the listening test? And what you should be focusing on. Okay, and after we have done the practice, I will inform you about that thing. Okay, and in our second meeting, okay, we are going to have assessment 2B first. Assessment 2B, listening standard operating procedure. It is going to be conducted individually, right? And then, if I'm not mistaken, I will get back about this thing, okay, to all of you. I will confirm the information. So you are going to do it at night, between 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's only half an hour, okay? So you're going to sit in front of your computer. I will give you the briefing, and then you need to answer the question. I'm going to play the recording. I will give you the link to the question, okay? So you are going to answer it online by just listening and then answer it, okay? And then after 9 p.m., okay, once we have done with the assessment, I will give you the briefing about assessment 2A. Okay, assessment 2A will be reading, okay, also on standard operating procedure, and it is going to be a pair work. So by now, you should decide who will be your partner for assessment 2A. Okay, right. So why am I going to give you the briefing about assessment 2A after the listening test? Is because assessment 2A will be in the duration of 6 days. Okay, so you have 6 days to complete the task. Okay, you have 6 days to complete the task, right? And then each pair, okay, let's assume that there are 30 of you in this class. Okay, 30 of you, there will be 15 pairs. Okay, assuming that there are 30 of you and there will be 15 pairs. So all pair, okay, each pair will not be having the same situation, the same information. Okay, so pair number 1, number 2, up until number 15. Okay, you are going to have different situation, and from the situation you have to transfer the information into the template of standard operating procedure. And let me get you the information earlier. Your focus should be only on graphic operating procedure. Okay, so there are three types of SOP: graphic operating procedure, flowchart operating procedure, and hierarchical operating procedure. But for assessment 2A, your attention, your focus should only be on graphic operating procedure. Okay, right. Is it clear, class? Class, do you have any question?
No, sir.
All right, so you know what you are going to do for assessment 2A and assessment 2B, right? Yes or no? Come on,
Yes, sir.
class. All right, so we're going to start with assessment 2B first. Then after that, I will give you the briefing regarding assessment 2A. Then you can focus on completing assessment 2A. Assessment 2A, the duration will be 6 days. Okay, 6 days altogether. All right, so let's us now have a look at this thing. Okay, so this is going to be the general format of SOP. So you're going to look at the general format of SOP, because why? Okay, please bear in your mind, when you're going to start working later on, okay, the company will have its own template for standard operating procedure for SOP. Okay, so different company will have different template. Even in the same company, right, when it comes to different department or different projects, okay, you are going to have different SOP. Okay, so our task over here is to teach you on the content wise. Okay, meaning that what are you supposed to put for each of the component in the template of the SOP. Okay, so over here we are going to give you the general format, okay, and what you should be filling in when it comes to the SOP itself, not only for the assessment but also when you are going to start working later on. Okay, so how to write a technical SOP? Remember, there are two types of SOP actually. Okay, there are technical SOP and administrative SOP. And for technical SOP, there are three types of it. Okay, graphic operating procedure, and then we have the flowchart operating procedure and hierarchical operating procedure. And since that we are doing, all of you are doing engineering courses, so therefore our focus will be only on technical SOP. Okay, only on technical SOP. Right. So an organization will have its own format, okay, for SOP, as I have mentioned to you. And you can follow the following format as a guide to write your technical SOP. So what we are teaching you in this slide is actually the content. Okay. All right. So number one that you need to know about the format for SOP will be on the reference number, the date, and the page number. Okay. All these three important information should be put in a box. Okay, and then written at the top on the upper right hand corner of every page of the SOP. Okay. Remember the word is every page. Okay, right. So what you are supposed to do, okay, so please raise your right hand, okay, look at the screen, and then look at the top right hand corner of the screen. Okay, your box consisting of the reference number, the date, and the page number should be there. Okay, and please make sure it appears in every pages. For assessment 2A, each pair, please make sure that you have the reference number, the date, and the page number which is in the box, okay, to be appear on each pages of the assessment. So for the assessment, right, you are going to write between 5 to 7 pages of the SOP. Okay, 5 to 7 pages. So let's say you have 5 pages. So please make sure that you have all of the information, okay, on the reference number, the date, and the page number again, okay, in a box on each pages up until the page number 5 if you have 5 pages. Okay, right. So what is it about the reference number? So the reference number is for filing and record purposes. Okay, for example, all right, you are working on a project, okay, and then your team is in charge of the mechanical work. Okay, so your reference number will start with M, for example. Okay, right, and then if the other group is working on the electrical part, so their SOP, the reference number will start with the alphabet E, for example. Okay, so this will be different depending on the project, the department in charge of the project, and also the organization. Okay, so different company will have different reference number. Even though that you are working in the same company, right, different department will have its own reference number. And then if you're working on the same project, there may be differences in terms of the reference number as well. Okay, right. Next, we are going to look at the date. So the date refers to the date the SOP is written. So today is the 27th of April 2021. Let's say if I ask you to write or to prepare the SOP for this particular procedure today, so the date should be written as 27th April 2021. Okay. However, if there are any changes or revisions made to the SOP, the date written should follow the date the information is revised. Okay, for example, next year your company is buying, okay, a new machine, and because of the buying, okay, the procedure is going to be shorter. So you need to do some changes to the existing SOP. Okay, so you need to write the recent date. So let's say it's going to be next year, so it's going to be 27 April 2022. Okay, for example, we're going to have a look at this example of the box later on, then you can have a clearer understanding about it. Okay, all right. Next, the page number of the SOP should follow accordingly, especially if the SOP consists more than one page. What does it mean? Okay, let's have a look at the example there. Okay, so what we have here is the box. Okay, you need to have this box to be appear on each pages of the SOP, especially if the SOP consists of more than one pages. Okay, all right, so you're going to write it like this. Okay, what is going to be the reference number? Okay, remember, if your task is on mechanical, so maybe you are going to have like the reference number begin with M, okay, and then 1, 2, 3, for example. Okay, if it is on electrical, you're going to have E, right, 1, 2, 3, maybe. Okay, all right. And then for the assessment 2A, some situation will provide you with the reference number. So if that is the case, you shouldn't have any problem because you can just copy and paste the reference number from the situation given to the template. All right. But if it is not given to you, class, can you excuse me for a while? Okay. Okay, right, let's get back to the notes. Can you listen to me? Class, can you listen to me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, right, great. Okay, if the reference number is not given in the situation, you can just create it. for the assessment. Okay, assessment 2A. If it is not given, then you can just create it, no problem. Right? Then, okay, let's say over here you can see the example of the original effective date of the SOP. So it was written 20th June 2011, and maybe, okay, because of the some changes in the procedure, so it was revised on the 20th of June 2012. Okay, so this is how you're supposed to write it if there are some changes or revisions to the SOP. Okay, so how to know about this? Please read the situation carefully. Okay, if there are no changes, if there are no revisions stated, then you can just maintain or writing it like this. But if there are changes, you need to do it like this. Okay, so it's going to be both if there are changes. Okay, next we are going to have a look at the page number. Okay, page 1 of 2. Right, so this is very important, and because this is the most common mistakes made by your seniors before this. Okay, why? When it comes to the second page, they forgot to change the information. The only information in the box that should be changed is the page number. Okay, let's say you are required to write, okay, SOP of 5 to 7 pages. So your first page is going to be page 1, okay, page 1 of 5. All right, so the second page is going to be page 2 of 5. All right, the same goes 3 of 5 until 5 of 5. So please do not forget about this, because if you didn't do any changes to the page number, the marks for the format will be deducted and you lose the mark. Okay, so this is a most important thing. Please make sure that you have this box, okay, in each page, all right, and then you just need to change the information on page number. Okay, so the title should be written at the top center of the page. So top center of the page, so it's going to be here, all right, or according to the template. Okay, so the phrase standard operating procedures should precede the title of the procedures, meaning that you need to have the phrases standard operating procedures first, followed by the procedure. So what is the procedure? Example given here. So the procedure is on transferring liquid chemicals. Okay, the second example, assembling the computer hardware, and then repairing faulty electrical circuit. So the one that I underlined here are the procedures. Okay, here are the procedures. Right. Okay, and then do not forget to include the phrases standard operating procedures before the name of the procedures itself for the title. Okay, and the linking words that you are supposed to use for each of the title is of. Okay, if you notice, the linking words is of. So standard operating procedures of transferring liquid chemicals. Okay, for example. Then the title should be clear that anyone who reads it will immediately understand what the procedures are likely to be. For example, okay, I ask you to do some maintenance work, okay, on faulty electrical circuit, but somehow you are given the SOP for transferring liquid chemicals. So it is not related at all. Then you can take the real one, okay, the correct one, and then you can follow the SOP. Okay, so my suggestion for the assessment, okay, when it comes to the title, you can bold the title like this, okay, and make it slightly bigger. Okay, the font size, right? If the normal font size is 12, maybe you can put it like 14 or 16 so that you can make it bigger. Okay, so the template will be given for assessment 2A in Microsoft Word, then you can edit the template, right? Okay, we're going to skip all of the activities here. You can do it on your own later on. Okay, next we are going to have a look at the department or unit. Okay, the department or unit. Okay, so when we are preparing the SOP, of course, it belongs to certain department or unit. Okay, so this is for the SOP and to whom it is responsible for. Okay, Alright, so the focus of the procedures needs to be stated, which is basically the title of the SOP, but it is more specific. Okay, so we have the title, but now you're going to write it more specific because you're going to include the department or the unit. Okay, example given here, this SOP has been written for the research and development laboratories, transfer of the hydrofluoric acid. Okay, so over here we have the procedure. The procedure is to transfer the hydrofluoric acid, okay, HF, and then what is the department? Okay, it is meant, the SOP is meant for the research and development laboratories. Okay, so this is how you're supposed to write for the department or the unit component in the SOP. Okay, next is on the purpose. So this is also very important because in the SOP itself, you need to state the purpose. Why do you prepare the SOP? So for the purpose part, there are three parts of it. Number one is on the, this is number one, okay, the aim or the function of the SOP. Number two is on the specific audience, and then number three will be the regulatory standards or the safety measure. Okay, so out of the three parts, the most important thing, and it is a must that you need to have, is the aim or the function. So you must have this. If you didn't put the purpose, the aim in the purpose part, then your marks will be deducted. Okay, so the most important is the aim, and the other two are optional. If you don't have number two and number three, no problem, but number one is a compulsory. Okay, example given here, the purpose of the SOP is to provide instructions for the safe use of 50% sulfuric acid. So that is the aim of this SOP. Okay, all right. And then what are the regulatory standards? Okay, to prevent spills, harmful vapors, and injury to the worker and environment. Okay, so the audience will be the worker. All right. In this context, what is the aim of it? To prevent spills, harmful vapors, and injury. Okay, what is the procedure? Instruction, okay, for the safe use of 50% sulfuric acid. Okay, all right, so this SOP, second example, tells how to safely use 50% acetone to prevent injury from vapors or environmental damage. So what is the aim of it? To prevent injury from vapors or environmental damage. Okay, all right, sorry, my bad. Okay, the one in bold, okay, over here is actually the aim of the SOP, okay, or the purpose of it, the aim of it. All right, the one in bold. Okay, let us have a look at the third example. So this SOP explains how to prepare instructions for nurses coming onto the next shift. Okay, so the one in bold will be the aim of the SOP, right? And then the one underlined here is the audience. Who is it for? Okay, so that will be the purpose of the SOP. Right. Next will be the person who can perform the job. Okay, so the SOP that we have prepared, okay, it is meant for certain group of people, not everyone. Okay, so it can be for the people who will perform the job or has performed the job. So what is the difference between two? Okay, so who will perform the job, meaning that maybe that particular person or personnel is totally new to the task. Okay, so they don't know the SOP, so you are preparing the SOP for them to follow it. Okay, and then for those who has performed the job, okay, sometimes, okay, you are required to redo the procedure again. Then you can refer to the SOP that you have prepared earlier. Right, so it is also meant for people who work together on a job or anybody related with the task. Okay, for example, all right, you are working on a project and then in the team, okay, there are groups of engineers, technicians, and maintenance, okay, personnel. All right, so you are going to prepare the SOP for them to follow. Okay, so even though you have in the group you have like different type of people, okay, or group of people working together with you, but the SOP can be be used for each and every one of them. Okay, right. SOP is also for those who will be supervising other people doing the job. Okay, let's say you have been promoted as the senior engineer, for example, and then you want to check whether the junior engineer is doing their job accordingly by referring to the SOP. So you have the SOP in your hand, and then you can see whether the junior engineer is doing their job, right? And also for safety and health officers, sometimes they're going to pay a visit to the site, and then they are going to have a look at the SOP and whether the workers are following the SOP set or prepared earlier. And lastly, for those who are going to be a technical writers, okay, maybe they are or they require or they need the SOP in order to write the manuals, for example. Okay. All right. Equipment or tools needed. Okay, this will be the last part of it, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so equipment or tools needed. Number one, you need to have the PPE, personal protective equipment. Okay, so it will be the tools that the person to work on the job must wear in order to ensure that he is bodily protected. Okay, and then the PPE should be listed carefully by identifying the correct types. Okay. For example, you are preparing the SOP for construction site. So the PPE maybe will be the safety helmet, okay, safety hat, and then you have the body vest, okay, with the reflectors, and then you are going to put the safety boot as well as part of the PPE. So you're going to list it according to the job, okay, and then if you're going to do or prepare a SOP for those working in the chemical lab, so maybe the PPE will be different from those working in the normal lab. Okay, chemical lab and normal lab will be a bit different. Okay, right. On the tools over here, all right, any equipments or tools, be it in liquid or solid form, which are needed in order to carry out the job. So what you need to perform the task. Okay, let's say you need to have the drill. So you're going to list the drill as part of the tools. Okay, and you can also include, okay, sometimes it is necessary, include the safety precautions when handling the tools. For example, okay, when you're going to use the drill, right, you need to, of course, first you take in the tools, you just list the drill, then after that, you're going to include the safety precautions. Please make sure that you tighten the screw of the drill, for example, okay, to avoid any injury. Okay, and lastly, we have the reference material here, and it is actually on any sort of reading or reference materials that can be suggested or that has been referred to when the SOP was written. Okay, in this context, let's say when you are preparing the SOP, somehow you are referring to a manual, okay, to help you in preparing the SOP. So in this case, for reference materials, you need to state which or what are the materials that you use in order for you to prepare the SOP. Okay, and for the assessment, okay, for the assessment, you are required to write the reference materials according to the APA 7th edition for assessment 2A, okay? So please write the reference materials according to the APA 7th edition. Right, any question, class? Class, do you have any question?
No, sir.
Right, how about the others? Are you still there? Do not fall asleep yet. Class, questions, please. Okay, no question. All right, let's move on to the last part of the class for today, which is on the sample of the SOP. Okay, so I'm going to start with the graphic, the flowchart operating procedure. Okay, right. So what we have here is a sample on flowchart operating procedure, and you can notice here the reference number. Okay, this is this will be the sort of template that you're going to have for assessment 2A. Okay, so reference number 2/11. Okay, and then you have the date, right, 9 of November 2016. Okay, page number 1 of 3. Okay, if you notice here, all right, I'm going to show to you there are some mistakes being made here because in the second page, okay, there is no box. Okay, this box doesn't appear in the second page. So this is wrong. So for your assessment 2A, okay, please remember to put the boxes, okay, the box in each of the page of the SOP. Okay, and you need to change only on the information of page number. Okay, so this is page number 1. So when it comes to the second page, it's going to be page 2 of 3, for example, right? Okay, the title, Standard Operating Procedure for Testing the Performance of a New Car. What is the mistake here? Can anyone highlight the mistakes or the mistake? Class, what is the mistake in the title? Class, guys, what is the mistake on the title?
There are no mistakes, sir.
Sure?
Yes.
The linking word. Remember, in the slides that I've showed to you earlier, the title should be written with the linking word off. Okay, so let's have a look at the title here. Okay, Standard Operating Procedures off. Okay, so for the title, you need to change it to the linking word off. Standard Operating Procedures of testing the performance of a new car. Okay, so please change the linking word for here to off. Okay, right. Department or unit. So this is meant for quality control department. What is the purpose? To provide an effective procedure to check the efficiency and condition of new cars. Okay, who can perform this SOP? QC operators or officers. Okay, for equipment or tools needed, okay, you have the PPE, right? Remember GOGGLES, you need to read it as goggles, okay? GOOGLE, Google, right? Tools, if none of it stated in the situation for assessment to A, then you can just write it as none. Okay, the same goes for others in the template. Okay, if there is no other information regarding it, then you can just put it as none. But for the reference material, okay, reference materials, if it is not stated in the situation given for assessment to A, right, please bear in your mind for assessment to A, you need to find the information from other sources as well. So you can go to any manuals, okay, maybe any pages, okay, on this kind of procedure. Then when you take the information from that particular page, okay, or sources, you need to cite it in the reference materials. Okay, so in this context, maybe this is a book, the name of the author, right, the year it was published, the name of the book, okay, and then who is the publisher, Alfred Publishing House. Okay, this is how you're supposed to write for reference materials. It follows the APA 7th edition. Okay, right, so we have the flowchart here. Okay, the cylindrical shape here represent the process, the beginning of it. Okay, the beginning and the end part of the process. Okay, so that's why it is in the cylindrical shape. Okay, start here and then the end should appear like this. Okay, in this particular shape. For rectangular shape like this is actually for the process itself or the procedure. So heat the engine for 5 minutes, then that will be the procedure. Okay, right. Then you come to the stage of decision making process. Okay, so are there any problematic sounds? If the answer is yes, then it will bring you to the next procedure, what you are supposed to do. Okay, all right. If the answer is no in this context, then you can proceed to the next procedure, which is to drive the car at 80 kilometers per hour at a distance of 1 kilometer. So you can see it clearly here. This is the sample of a flowchart operating procedure until the end of it. And also do not forget, okay, to include this information prepared by, reviewed by, and approved by. Okay, so you put the signature and then your full name and then your designation or your position in the company. Okay, reviewed by, again, the signature, the name of the person in charge, and then the designation or the position. And lastly, approved by, normally it is among the administrative staff. So over here, we have the general manager position. Okay, so you need to have all of these elements, okay, in the SOP, and this is for flowchart SOP or flowchart operating procedure. Okay, but what we have here at the bottom page, okay, is going to be similar for all of the SOP, and the same goes for the information above here. Okay, for the information here until the boxes, okay, it will be the same for all types of SOP, regardless whether it is graphic operating procedure, flowchart operating procedure, or hierarchical operating procedure. So done about flowchart. Let us have a look at hierarchical SOP. Okay, again, the same thing. All right, but the same mistake because in the second page, it is not being put on the second page. So please get aware or be aware about this. Okay, and then this is on standard operating procedure again of, okay, quenching the bottom of a solvent drying still. So this is the procedure, right? And then for the hierarchical operating procedure, everything is being arranged according to the sequence. So this is step number 1, step number 2, okay, step number 3, and until the rest. And you have the same things again at the bottom of the SOP. Okay, you need to have the prepared by, reviewed by, and approved by column. Okay, so this is for hierarchical because it follows the sequence. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and the rest. So whatever appear, for example here, number 1, say this is stage number 1, right, or sequence or step number 1, then you have the procedure. Okay, right, and then you can see the imperative here. Acquire, okay, obtain, place, aim, okay, and then continue, remember. Okay, so basically this SOP and also the SOP that you're going to work with, right, should have the imperatives. Okay, so this is on hierarchical operating procedure, and let us have a look at the graphic operating procedure here. Okay, so this is what you're going to do for the graphic operating procedure. You have the stages of the procedures, okay, before alignment, equipment preparation, during alignment, and after alignment. So this is how you're supposed to arrange your graphic operating procedure from left to right, okay, and then you have all of the procedures, okay. At this stage before alignment, there are 2 procedures. Equipment preparation, there are 3 procedures. During alignment, there are 5 procedures altogether, and after alignment, there are 3 procedures. Okay, so each one of the stage, okay, will consist different numbers of procedure depending on the SOP. Okay, and then what makes it different? Right, if you can see here, mark the laboratory's door with the notice sign. So you need to put the picture or the image or the illustration of that particular procedure. So in this context, mark the laboratory's door with the notice sign. So this is the notice sign, laser alignment in progress, do not enter, eye protection required. Okay, so let's say if your procedure later on, okay, for example, to scoop, okay, the what do you call it, the raw material, for example, and put it in the bin, then you can find the picture or the image or the illustration of a person, okay, doing the job, okay, scooping the raw material and put it in the bin. So where to get the information from, where to get the pictures from, you can take it from the internet. Okay, for assessment to A, you can take it from the internet. And remember the reference materials part, okay, for the column on reference material, you are going to put the sources where you have taken the pictures from. Okay, so this is for graphic operating procedure. For each of the procedure, you will have the image or the pictures. Okay, let's say there are 5 procedures over here. Maybe you are going to have 5 different pictures in this particular column. Okay, to represent about the procedures. So this is about graphic operating procedures. Okay, class. Right, so done with the lecture. Any question from anyone? Do you have any question regarding graphic operating procedure or flowchart operating procedure or the hierarchical operating procedure? Any question, class?
Yes, sir.
Clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay, all right. So maybe at this moment you don't have any question, okay? But when you are going to do the exercises, okay, on the 3 exercises, the first 2 given earlier, and also the one that I'm going to share after this, okay, on graphic operating procedure. So if you have any question, maybe you encounter that kind of situation, you're going to have some questions. So feel free to ask me in our WhatsApp group. Okay, I will respond to it as soon as possible. Okay, and then if you need more clarification, maybe somehow you find, okay, other types of SOP, or you have looked at certain SOP before this, and then you need to know about the differences, okay, then you can also share it with the rest of us in our WhatsApp group. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now.